I think, for those that have gone to therapy much more than I and have explained it to me, what they've gotten out of it is the fact that they've found out that the answer is in them. It may be
Hmm.
tough, it may be a long road, it may be hard, but the answer is within you, and you are worthy, you can do it, and it's in you.
What's up? What's up, y'all? It's your girl Shanti Das, the host of the Mibo Show podcast, and we are back, baby. So excited to be back. Season 2 of the Mibo Show. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Our first episode was really good. It just launched a couple weeks ago. So if you have not seen it, do yourself a favor and please watch it. We had a very candid conversation with the legendary DJ, my buddy D Nice, about Black men and mental wellness and how he built a global and transformative platform from uncertain times during the pandemic, I think for all of us. So again, if you haven't checked it out, please check it out, subscribe and rate it. We truly appreciate it. And this week we are back with another powerful conversation. It's actually part 2 of the Black men and mental health theme with another legendary guest. And I gotta say, this guest is like close to my heart here. And I wasn't sure what his schedule was like. And when his assistant said he could do it, I was just like smiling from ear to ear. So again, this episode is really, really special. We have an incredible person, and I'm just ready to jump and dive into this conversation. So without further ado, I want to introduce a great human being, first and foremost. We can get to the stats later. But first, he is an amazing human, father, husband, brother, friend, all of the above. Now his incredible stats, y'all. Okay, you ready for this? Number 1 overall NBA draft pick, right? 5-time NBA All-Star, NBA Rookie of the Year, and yes, he is now an NBA Hall of Famer, and he can add another notch to his belt. He's also an author now of an incredible book called By God's Grace, which is out. Let's welcome to the Mibo Show, Chris Webber.
Hey, what's up, Shanti? Make me feel good about myself. I like that.
Come on, brother, you should. I mean, I had to pinch myself reading all those stats. I was like, that is really impressive. But welcome to the show, my friend.
No, thank you. And I just been seeing everything you've been doing in the mental health space. And I love the fact that, you kind of put your feelings where your mouth are, meaning that you are vulnerable for a lot of people and getting to know you at a time in Atlanta when I didn't know your whole background and knowing that you were an adult woman.
No.
It's really cool hearing your story and just watching you evolve and all the great things that help people like you are. So it's my honor to be on the show.
Thank you so much, Chris. And we also have another really special person joining us today. We have Dr. Sheldon A. Jacobs. He is from the National Alliance on Mental Illness, also known as NAMI. Dr. Jacobs is the secretary of the NAMI Board of Directors. He's also the president of the NAMI Southern Nevada branch. And he was vice president of NAMI Southern Nevada for 4 years. So let's welcome to the show, Dr. Jacobs.
Yes, thank you for having me. And I applaud both of you for just all the tremendous work that you're doing, especially with the platforms that you have. So thank you both for just being who you are.
Well, thank you for being on the front line, because I know that members of your family had dealt with mental health challenges and it brought you to NAMI. And that's why you're doing the important work that you do now. So, brother, it's people like you that are out here saving lives. So thank you again for being on.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, first off, congratulations again on the new book, By God's Grace. I cannot believe, when I was listening to one of your interviews, I was like, wow, it took him 12 years to write this. But that's really impressive because you took your time to deliver the best product that I think you felt like, right, was best representative of yourself. And you should be really proud of that. You didn't rush through it and you did it yourself. So my first question to you is, what was that process like writing the book yourself and not having a ghostwriter? And I also heard you say that it was inspiring and depressing at times. Can you tell us like what part of it was depressing for you and how did you work through that?
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me on. And the reason why it took so long, I think it's kind of natural now that I've got a chance to talk to other authors, the fact that they've been able to have stories in their mind and be able to put them together. So A lot of it was due to research since a young age. About the age of 12, I've had reporters or people telling my story. And they didn't know context, didn't know where I was from, didn't know didn't know the experience of people and other things like that. And so for me, I really wanted to go through it in a couple of stages. One, as technical as I could to have the facts. Number two, to be able to rediscover and to research my family. And so there's so many things. And I'm sure Dr. Sheldon, you'll be able to speak on this and do two shots of that. There are so many things that our families empower us with just from DNA, and there are other things that maybe don't empower us. And so for me, I wanted to go back and look at what gave me the strength on the cord and life, some things that I've been through. And so I've never met my grandmothers in the physical. Well, one grandmother, she passed away when I was 3, but I was able to speak to my great aunt who was sisters with my grandmother. And so understanding my grandmother's story, where she came from, the fact she had large hands, her attitude, I was like, wait a minute, that's me, and other things. So I was able to discover a lot of the strength that was passed down and the prayers that were passed down through generations. And I think at times it was the best feeling in the world to be able to celebrate those. But then again, when you go and you research other stories, you realize what you've been through, you know, what happens when you forgive and forget. And then you have to write about it, and you look at it from a much more mature perspective and say, wait a minute, you did that when I was 14. You have to forgive again, you know. And so a lot of small epiphanies or large epiphanies came to me while I was writing it. It was a process. I really thank God for that it happened. I don't think I would ever have an energy to do something that exhausting again. But it definitely was a moment to celebrate the journey. It was a moment to be thankful for God and His grace through the times in which it sustained me, and hopefully looking forward to the future.
I love that. And, most people don't have that opportunity like you did to be able to interview family members. It's like doing ancestry.com right there on your own, right through those years. And one thing in particular, especially in Black communities and the family, we have a lot of unresolved trauma at times, right? So being able to go back and retrace our steps and deal with that can be a lot to navigate through. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Dr. Sheldon?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I would imagine, Chris, that it was like, being in therapy almost. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of things a lot of traumas that were coming up, and having a process, through some of that, I'm sure it was challenging at times. And I'm sure it brought an array of different emotions for you. And so, but also sure there was some healing that hopefully came along with that as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, there was a lot of again forgiveness, a lot of healing, forgiving yourself, going back to and kind of seeing it for the straight narrative that it is. You know, when we're going through something, it's easy to grab hold to doctrine, fake confidence, other things, and then go back and see you made it through and be like, wait a minute, looking back with 2020 vision, I really had great people around me. There really were people rooting for and so I think too, going back allows me to put things in the proper perspective and not really tell a story that in my mind, not even in the book, but in my mind, one that it makes sense, and to really be grateful for the journey again.
Absolutely. And Chris, I think you would agree, mental health is definitely more normalized now, right? Especially among certain athletes in our community. Did you ever face any mentally tough times while you were playing professionally? And if so, how did you cope on and off the court? And then were there even programs around to help athletes during that time?
Yeah, I'm, very honestly, because it wasn't normalized, I'm not sure. I'm sure maybe there had to be programs, sports psychology and others, but I think sports psychology at times would address confidence in the game and
Mm,
how you step up and things like that. And, the background that I came from Detroit, it wasn't hard to have confidence in the game. However, I'm sure that confidence in other places or full context was affected. Not saying it was the perfect background.
yeah,
However, that background addressed some things and didn't address others. I did it. But as I talk to people like Dr. Sheldon, yourself, and others, and my brother David, I'm learning, the fact not only about positive reinforcements and people in your life, but in looking back, I do see where if I did not take advantage of tools like therapy, that by God's grace, I had those people in my life. And so what do I mean? You have to hit things head on. That's one thing I learned from my father, and you really can't run from issues and problems. And his background was such, his mother passing at 12 and living on a plantation, him seeing the worst of poverty, that it prepared him coldly, but it prepared him for some of the things that I could take from his pain and kind of insert it in me and say, wait a minute, if he's gone through this and I've been bitter and this has not happened, then at least I have a North Star. I have something to fight for. It wasn't easy to lie to myself and say, woe is me. And so after the timeout, I called it timeout. I'm 20 years old, or I just turned 20 a month before. So I'm 19 years old mentally. And it is kind of one of the worst moments, the worst moment I had faced up to that point. Well, let me not say that. I had two friends that before I went to my first AAU game at the age of 12, one of my close friends was shot and killed in our neighborhood. And so that's something, right? As a man, you're told to get over. So, and so great thing I had people to explain that and family to be around and help me process my feelings and not manifest it another way. But when I call the timeout, usually you think it's your father, you go to him, boy, it's going to be okay, and those type of things. But for me, it was my mother. And my parents have been married 50 years, but my mother really never put sports first. She's an educator, taught in the worst schools or some of the greatest schools in Detroit, which happened to be some of the worst schools at times. And I remember coming home to get some love, and just during that point to figure things out. Should I go to the NBA? It's these opportunities. I want to come back. I'm feeling guilty. All these things, and just support in so many ways can clear the smoke for 1 second, and you can see clearly. And so my mother had a license plate made, and she's not a vanity person in any way. And said, time out. And she is in the church. So she was like, listen, what God meant for bad, he meant for good. And
yes.
like, this is my badge of honor, and I'm teaching my kids about this, and they're going to see your worst moment and how you bounce back from that. And in my mind, so that's what she said. But in my mind, I heard, baby, this go work out, get it together, kill it. You about to be the first pick. And if you go this year, go. If you don't, so what? You've been prepared for this. God got your back. Is it going to be hard? Yeah, but so what? Get through it. What you going to do? Get rookie of the year. Because I had that. I didn't have someone say, what was me from their point of view, and I know after talking to her that was a hard conversation to have with me.
Absolutely.
And she had to make sure she was ready for that moment. But that moment distracted me and focused me in the most positive of ways. And so that's what I mean about God's grace, a kind word, someone that is there for you at your worst moments. Not for us not to take our words or our kind actions for granted, because we don't know what we're doing in another person's life by being authentic. We talk about religion, and I don't want to put anyone off with the title of God's grace, because I knew that could be polarizing. But I just think in any religion, we're taught to love others, treat others as we would ourselves. And if we just keep that base, I think everybody in the world can agree with that, right? Love is the number one rule, and to treat people. And if we do that, we show God's grace every day. And so many people from my coaches, AAU coaches, high school coaches, parents, friends, friends of my parents that have been there for me in those kind moments that have allowed me to stay focused. And I just didn't want to take that for granted.
I just gotta take a deep breath and pause for a second, because nobody really knows how I met you, Chris, and you didn't even know my full story of everything I had gone through from a mental health perspective. I quit my job and moved back home to Atlanta. I walked away from a huge salary, huge career for mental health and physical health challenges. And when I got back home, a friend of a friend connected me to you, and you asked me to be your co-host. Like, you were doing podcasting before podcasting was podcasting.
That's right.
And you had a show on Sirius XM, and I thought, wait, you want me to be your co-host? And I had all this emotional stuff going on, but again, we never talked about it. And it was even you just giving me grace, saying, I've heard a lot of good things about this young lady. I don't really know her, but you took a shot on me at one of the lowest points in my career. We've never truly talked through this.
Well,
me moving back home and walking away was huge, but having, to your point, God's grace and the kindness and the love that your mom bestowed upon you and people who loved on me. And before I even knew that I needed to go to therapy, I think initially it is just so important from a wellness perspective, whether you're a Black man or woman or anybody in the community, that you show a little grace to people.
Think about this. Like, I know, you're very close with your sister and your mother. Like, if they didn't pour into you, you wouldn't be the person that would make people be that attracted to you in a way. Like, I need to be around her spirit, And so, no, I didn't know any of this was going on, but I knew that there was something about you that, yeah, they say you're cool, but you cooler than cool. And I don't mean a fake, non-substance thing, but there was something deep there. Even though you went to Syracuse, I let that slide. But besides that, and hopefully one day we can really sit down, because at that time too, it's so crazy. I think, for me, it was one of the worst times, even though a lot of great things were going on at that time. I definitely couldn't embrace it and celebrate it as much because it was unfinished resolve.
And I felt that, like, this is probably a whole different episode, but I felt at times, I felt like you were present, but you weren't a little bit. I could see other stuff going on, but I was just getting to know you. It wasn't up to me to try to pry and ask questions. I never once brought up Michigan or any of that. I respected you for the great person that you were, but I never tried to even pry into your space. But again, now looking back, like, I understand the journey, and I'm so glad that you are telling your own story now. And I think, again, as Black men, when we even think about our mental health, we let other people share and tell our narrative. And that's what's so important. I want to bring Dr. Sheldon into the conversation, and I want you to talk about your perspective on mental health equity, the stigma around Black men sharing their narratives, and just talking about mental health in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Chris, for sharing your testimony, man. That's quite the story. For me, it started way back when I was about 14 years of age. I was nearly killed in a drive-by shooting. Actually, it was God's grace that that prevented those bullets from leaving that gun and killing me. But because of some poor choices that I made, I was involved in a gang and doing some crazy things I had no business doing. That makes a very poor decision. They caught up with me one day, and so at my at my lowest low, because I was also struggling with other things, like it was my parents had divorced, so my mom was raising me as a single parent. I also was diagnosed with a learning disability, so school was very hard for me. So I had all these things going on at once. And my 8th grade teacher, her name was Miss Haley. She set me aside one day after that traumatic event with the drive by, and I had all these different just emotions going on. Just I was in a very dark place, and she pulled me aside and sat me down. And was like, you know what, I want you to stay after school each day. And this is crazy because this happened literally. This conversation happened a week after that traumatic event. So she sat me down. She's like, I want you to stay after school every single day, and I want you to get caught up on all your schoolwork, so you can bring your grades up. My grades were horrible at the time, and she also knew that if I were to go home, that I'll be going home to an empty home where my mom was working 2 jobs just to barely make ends meet. I would have all this idle time, which would lead to me getting into further trouble. So by doing so, she first off, she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time. And from that moment on, I started feeling better about myself and understanding the importance of school. And fast forward 20 years later from that point, I started working on my trauma, because at the time I didn't know what was going on. I kept everything sort of bottled up. I didn't want to tell my mom, my parents, and my family what I was doing. I was involved in the gang. I was almost killed, and I didn't want them to know that. But I was having these symptoms, I was having these flashbacks, I was having this hyper arousal whenever I went back to the area where the trauma happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally, I was again, 20, 25 years later, getting ready to go to grad school, and my graduate program, mandated all students to have their own therapy. And so I had to see a therapist for the first time. And that's when I was really able to connect the trauma. And think about that. I mean, this is years later. I was suffering for years and didn't even truly realize what was going on with me. But from that point on, I was able to start my recovery journey. And now today, I mean, it warms my heart to see where we're at in terms of normalizing mental health, chipping away at the stigma. I mean, obviously, there's still a long ways that we need to go. But like the conversation we're having right now, this is huge because, we need to normalize it first. We need to spread awareness first before we can truly intervene, because there's still a lot of unfortunately, there's still a lot of folks from the community that look at therapy sideways, right? They look at mental health sideways, and I think that the more we're able to kind of have these open and honest conversations about the importance of mental health and what mental health really is. I think there's also a whole other component when it comes to mental health literacy. If I'm struggling with depression, what does that look like? What does that mean even? Because the three of us, here on this, having this conversation, if all three of us are diagnosed with depression, it might look very different for the three of us, right? And so I think it's important that we understand what depression looks like, what anxiety looks like, when is a good time for me to seek help, because that can vary from person to person. And so, but also understanding, the importance of being proactive when it comes to our mental health. So not waiting until you're in a crisis, not waiting until the roof's coming off the house to get help, but seeking it proactively is key.
Thank you, Dr. Sheldon. And going back to you, Chris, again, when I first met you and realized your brother David was a therapist, I didn't understand as much about mental health, even though I was going through my changes. I hadn't properly addressed anything, and I had a family member that was suffering, but I just didn't even understand the significance of it. And now I just realize how important it is for us in our community, again, to speak up. And in your opinion, Chris, and especially from working closely with your brother David, why is it important for Black men to open up and talk about their feelings, whether it's within your own home or, going back and being able to talk to family members in the workplace, in the community? And like, how did David kind of inspire you to open up?
Yeah. So first, I do think it's very important for Black men, and we're going to talk about that. But I think it's very important for Black women to keep talking about it, because Black men follow, we follow what the Black women do anyway. So if my wife's in the house talking about it all day,
Shout out to you.
I'm going to, talk. And I think that it's very important, like your partnership here with Dr. Sheldon and others, because you have to be an advocate and there has to be a doctor, but the doctor is not as valuable without the advocate. The advocate is not as valuable. It's not where you have to know everything, like you said, because maybe our trauma is different, but you keep talking about it will make me seek out a Dr. Sheldon. And talking to my brother and watching him go through getting his master's degree and all of that, I was sitting and talking to him about what his papers were about, what were the things. And so I would hear him, say things like, as a person, you're automatically going to have these negative thoughts, A and T's and all this. And it made me go, wait a minute, that's true. And to speak to a therapist that says, well, this happened to you, this, but as he's studying, as he's going, and he's sharing his story with me. So David is one of the best basketball players in Michigan. He broke Larry Bird's record. They retired his jersey, or he's in the Hall of Fame from Michigan. But immediately you would never know this, because in his life, his career was a failure because he wanted to be like Isaiah Thomas. And so with that in perception and admiring him as much as I admire him, it lets me know that all of us have distorted ways of looking at ourselves. All of us, and so to me, these conversations with my younger brother and the way that I look at him so positively, letting me know that, wait a minute, everybody has these thoughts. That kind of showed the importance to me. And also, knowing that my father didn't have the luxury to have someone to talk to. He didn't have the luxury to figure this out, right? Because it was different times, or his father. So really to appreciate that right now we're in a place where there are people like Dr. Sheldon and others that are available for us, and we do, have that. So just our relationship, just talking basketball, him knowing my life so intimately, allowed it to come through, and not in a judgmental place, but in a place where it's just it's not funny, but it's funny, because when you get down to the core of it, you realize there's a difference between guilt and shame. You realize that depression is this, but you realize that there's another side, right? And so my thing is that, doctors have to diagnose it, they have to tell us what it is, but Shanti, you're responsible for the other side. I'm responsible for the other side, that moment of encouragement, that moment of letting them know, hey, you've been here, because that gets them one or two more steps. They'll get to the other side. And so I really saw how important it is not to try to separate the doctor from the advocate, but to go and step together, because people will show up when they're ready, and everyone has a responsibility. So David has been great for me, and also on other people's lives. And so I'm excited that it is a topic in our community. I'm excited that it's only going to grow. I'm excited that people that are authentic like yourself that can say, wait a minute, I've done this and I've done that. Look at all the wonderful people I work with, and this is what it is. And you have this in you too, to not only accomplish what I did, but get through it in a safe, mental safe space way, I think is important. So yeah, David really has heightened my awareness about the importance of mental health, and hopefully I can share that with my brothers across the world. And when it's time, they'll seek it on their own. And for everyone, I think the time is now.
Absolutely. I love that. So we all need more Davids and Dr. Sheldons in our lives.
No doubt. No
All
doubt.
our brothers out there on the front line making it happen. And I, this is my podcast, The Mibo Show. I don't want to shout out our partner, Johnson & Johnson, who makes it possible for me to even do this work. But I also have my own nonprofit, Silence the Shame. And, when I first started talking about my suicidal ideation, Chris, like I was so embarrassed for people like you to find out that I almost took my own life in 2015. And I mean, I've since lost my sister unexpectedly. I lost my mom. Whew. Hard to say that sometimes. But, it's so much that happens in our community, which continues to just really encourage me to let people know, like, it's okay to talk about it, for our Black men, for our Black women, and that we don't keep this generational trauma going. And, my dad even died by suicide, and we never dealt with it and we never talked about it. But I am just so grateful to see our Black men stepping up and still being resilient, right? Because it's not a sign of weakness when you want to talk to somebody, you want to express your feelings, but it truly is overwhelming at times. And I just get, full in my heart when I see men like yourselves and like Dr. Sheldon just like out there on the front lines, talking about everything else, but bringing mental health into the conversation. Because I tell people we all have mental health. It's how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So it's not like this separate thing from your physical health, right? It really is all in one. And so again, just, thank you both for what you're doing and how you're making a positive impact on our community. And Chris, I just want to go back to the book, By God's Grace. And again, with it being a 12-year journey, I'm just so inspired by how you kept going on your mission to tell your own story. And even kind of if you relate the title to mental wellness, how important is it for people to realize that you could combine therapy with God or therapy in the universe, whatever you believe in? Because when I almost took my own life, I called the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-TALK. You can also dial 988 now. But I also texted my pastor, Dr. Warnock, in the same breath, like it wasn't a separate thing. And so, just even on your journey to wellness overall, how important is it to have that faith, but then to have a David in your life as well?
Yeah, I think, for those that have gone to therapy much more than I and have explained it to me, what they've gotten out of it is the fact that they've found out that the answer is in them. It may be tough, it may be a long road, it may be hard, but the answer is within you, and you are worthy, you can do it, and it's in you. And so if that is the point that you get to overcome problems, I would say then what's in you to make you that. And that's how I put it together. And so I don't want to offend anyone that's non-Baptist,
Right.
Protestant, Catholic, none of that. Because again, it gets back to love. I believe that there would be a lot less mental problems if we loved each other.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is our trauma of how we were treated in situations in which we felt safe. And so
That's right.
if we go back to the love, then automatically we will cut down on those rates. And so that's how I equate it. I equate it to Miss Riley and Dr. Sheldon's life. I equate it to what you're doing right now. You don't know, Shanti, but by you telling your story and then say going to India and celebrating your heritage and culture, how many other people say, wait a minute, let me focus on that culture that I have right now? You understand what I'm saying? That's what God's grace means, being open enough to be brave enough to be yourself, because it's not for you to keep score of whose lives you're touching. You don't even know who's watching you. And that's not for you, because we can get caught up in numbers and other things. But if you're that open vessel, meaning living your best life, not even thinking about anyone else, it just means your light will shine on them and make them say, man, how did Shanti get through it? I'm sure people have called you and asked you that. And I'm sure sometimes you say, I don't even know, but this is what I did. And that's enough, And so I just really celebrate people that were brave enough to say something in the moment, to live their life and get criticized and didn't know. I pulled from that later on because it's those examples, and I found that it takes bravery to live. It takes bravery, and that's what I want to celebrate in people because I know it's in all of us. We try to encourage ourselves, whether you take mantras, whether you take a verse. I had to encourage myself, whatever that is in us, and so I've just been on a journey of self-exploration, a journey of discovery, and the more that I've been on this journey, I've appreciated those that have come before me because of what they had to go through. But I've also learned that DNA, the DNA of those that came over on ships, the DNA of those that had to fight, the DNA is in all of us. The DNA has memory, and that resolve, that's in us. We may have to go to a place to find it, but that resolve in us. And in my life, my relationship and my faith have been what I've held on to. Like you've had to text it and that during those times, but I've also had to have a relationship with those that can explain it in a way that is beyond cliche sometimes and break it down. And I thank God for doctors like Data Rainier, my brother, and Dr. Sheldon that can give that as well.
Let me just say, and I say this in the most respectful way, your growth is truly inspiring. Just from even, we spent time together. What was that? I don't know, 2011, 2012.
Yeah, way before COVID.
Long time, way before COVID, when we were doing the show together. But just to see your commitment to your family, right? As a father, as a brother, as a son, as a husband, you just clearly focused on your life. And I so respect that and appreciate it. And to see the fruits of the labor now of all you've been doing the last, 10 years, 12 years of building this brand, writing your story. And it makes perfect sense now. You were really beginning this journey when I met you. Essentially, that was 12, almost 13 years ago. And so, y'all, please go buy the book, By God's Grace. I'm just so proud of this young man. We just got a few more questions, and I'm going to let you good brothers get back to your regularly scheduled program. But my heart is so full right now. I just want to ask you, Dr. Sheldon, what are the actionable solutions being implemented by the Community Health Equity Alliance, and how is it coming to life in Nevada?
Thank you for that question. So before I answer it, though, Shanti, can I just mention something?
Please.
I think this is important for people to understand too. That I know there's this notion that that we all need therapy or we should go to therapy. Therapy is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a clinician. I believe in therapy, but I'm also a realist in the sense that a lot of, especially Black men, just they're not going to go to therapy. No matter how much how great we present it. So I think it's important that we meet our men where they are, and people in general. I mean, men, women, whoever, meet them where they are. And what I mean by that is there's support groups. There's the barbershop. I mean, especially for us as men, that's a huge place that's safe. That's comforting for a lot of us. And so I think it's a matter of equipping our barbers, equipping our leaders, our faith leaders, the individuals where we tend to, or who we tend to go to when it comes to refuge, when it comes to support. I think it's also important that we were able to equip those individuals with the necessary resources as well, because that's real. I think I think if we're all sort of speaking the same language and talking about mental health and its importance, no matter if it's in a support group setting, if it's a pastor in front of his congregation talking about mental health, I think that's very important. No, but don't get me wrong. I think for some of us, we need that.
I agree with you 100%. And guess what? It's still not accessible for everybody, particularly in our community. So a lot of us don't even have access to the internet. We don't have access, or the funds to afford good therapists. And so you're right. There are a lot of different things that we could do to uplift each other, to equip them with some tools that can help them through this wellness journey.
Absolutely. And I think that's why the Chia initiative is so important, because I think it does just that. It really the initiatives are meant to meet our community where it needs to be met, right? Because every community is different, every community looks different in terms of the resources that are available. And so I think that one of the key pieces is just that, is the awareness, talking about, having the conversations, whether it be if it's through podcasts, if it's through roundtable discussions, if it's through various community events. I think is very important that the conversations continue to be had, and that the individuals that are at the table, whether it be community leaders, elected officials, pastors, barbers, beauticians, you know, hairstylists, whoever. I think it's important that they are at that table as well. And we're talking about mental health, talking about access, talking about where resources are available, in the community. We're having those larger conversations. Also, something that's important when it comes to just the CHIA initiative
And when you
is
say
just
CHIA, that's the Community Health Equity Alliance. For those, it's CHIA. Yep.
thank you.
Okay.
I have my notes right here, and my eyes are bad, so like I'm
Oh,
trying
yes,
to read my notes.
I got you.
So thank you for that, Shanti. Yes. And so the other key piece is when it comes to stigma. We know that stigma is a very real thing. We know that stigma is what prevents a lot of people from reaching out for help and talking about their mental health and their traumas. And so I think the more that we're able to chip away at the stigma, I think the more that we can reach people, so that they can get the help that not only they need but that they deserve.
That's right.
And that goes along with access. You alluded to earlier, Shanti, that access when it comes to therapy for a lot of people is unaffordable, right? It's therapy, is not cheap. Sometimes finding a good therapist can be very tough because a lot of times they might, if you're good at what you do, no matter what business you're in, there's going to be people waiting in line to access you. And so I think that trying to to help fill that void by getting more clinicians of color in the workplace. I think that's key and vital because I do believe in the laws of attraction. I do believe that when people see someone that looks like me that's sitting in this seat that I'm sitting in, they're more likely to seek help. They're more likely to go to therapy. So I think that's very important. And the last point I want to make, Shanti, and that is regarding the National Crisis Can't Wait campaign that's that NAMI has partaken in. I mean, this is a very important initiative because 988. I think less than half of the United States population knows about 988, and that's unacceptable. We have to do a better job of getting the word out when it comes to 988, and I think that with this initiative, we'll be doing just that. And the last part to that is, when it comes to just crisis, where do I turn to one-man crisis? Where do I turn to if a family member is struggling? I think that all of these resources, we have them available on our website. So you can go to, give me 1 second. You can go to, chia.nami.org to access these resources.
Thank you. chia.nami.org. We got it. Thank you so much. That's all crucially important information as we continue on this mental health journey. Chris, brother, what do you do for self-care? We know that you I know that you love music. I know you love collecting African-American historical artifacts. So what do you do for wellness and fun?
Wellness and fun now, truthfully, is just important to my kids.
Oh,
So right now,
I haven't met them yet, but that's I'll talk to you later.
yeah, wow, it's live, but they are 7-year-old twins, and really just watching them grow in their development, knowing that as we're talking about mental health, I would think some of the remedies of mental health is to communicate and make sure you cultivate, ask questions, and so just trying to be. Just really enjoying my relationship with them and hopefully trying to give them as much love as my parents gave me. And on the other side, I just throw myself into being an entrepreneur. At least that way I can be tired on my own hours and be theirs. And so, but this book, making sure that we put out stories that inspire others. I have athletes and mothers of athletes and entertainers coming out as well here at Weber Publishing, and you can get the book at chrisweber.com.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I really wanted to do it because a lot of times our IP is undervalued, our stories are taken for granted, and some of us have.
I might need to holler at you, brother. Okay.
You already know Shanti Das, hip hop legend 101 that wrote the business book. You already are. I'm fighting this style anyway. So we do need to talk, but really trying to be. I think that where there's opportunity, you can be profitable and give a solution. And instead of complaining about some of the stuff we're going through, I'm just trying to look at it as an opportunity and maybe attack it and get the most out of it.
That's a beautiful thing. What do you do, Dr. Sheldon? I know you're a clinician. You take care of everybody else. What do you do?
Right.
No.
For me is, so I'm an avid runner. Just got into running probably about 14, 15 years ago. So I run about 20 miles a week. And it doesn't seem as much as you kind of break it down. So running is everything for me. And I'm a sports fanatic. So, and Chris, don't get mad at me. I am a Ohio State alumni. And so,
Oh, I wouldn't have done the show if I had known that. We wouldn't even be talking on mental health, boy. Except we put the whooping on y'all issues. So
you guys, I give it to you. You guys had our number the last couple of years. So, um, so I'll watch some good sport, a good game, but yeah, my mental health has kind of been suffering because of my Buckeyes. um, but I think Shanti, I think just finding what works for you, I think is huge. I always try to keep 5 or 6 tools in my toolbox that I refer to, and so because sometimes you may not be able to access, a certain tool, and
Yeah.
so for me, if it's not, I can't always run, obviously, so it might be listening to some good music, or going on a nice walk, or journaling even. I've been journaling more than I ever have, and that's very therapeutic for me.
Nice. Yeah, for me, I like to just turn on the music and let's just let it play out throughout my house and dance. And I'm suffering a little bit too. My orange men, we're in regroup mode. But shout out to my boy Adrian Autry, who's the coach now. He's gonna bring us back to glory. All right, final question that we ask everybody on the Mibo Show for season 2. What song stimulates your mind? Because the Mibo Show is MI for mind, BO for body. So what song stimulates your mind and what song soothes your body? Chris, you are up, brother.
Man, I was hoping to go second. I'm like, okay. Okay. Wow.
What soothes your mind?
What soothes my
It
mind?
could just be any song. It don't have to be something you listen to all the time.
I know. It's you just opened up. Okay, what? Okay. Right now, I'm pushing. Boom. What soothes my mind? Well, Anita Baker always soothes my mind.
Yes.
I mean, I meant to, I used to go to sleep to her actually, like in high school. I'd turn the radio real low and play Anita Baker, and it would probably be like, be My Angel, or I apologize, but one of her songs. And then What Soothes My Body. That's a good one. What soothes my body. Is that like what gets me hype, or is that what relaxes?
Yeah, either or. Just kind of push your body in a mode where you feeling good.
I'm just gonna say, shoot, I'm gonna be mad at myself after because my mind's gonna keep going. I would just say Shut Him Down by Public Enemy.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if I get that and I got to work out or something, that'll get me ready for the moment. So
yes. All right, Brother Sheldon, what song stimulates your mind and what song soothes your body?
Ooh, okay. My mind, I would say anything Sade, anything. And then in terms of my body, I was a huge Tupac fan, so I think the one that gets me going, Shed So Many Tears. That's my jam.
That's good.
See, that's why I'm mad now, because my mind just going, that's a good one.
All right, so I'm gonna add my little 2 cents. So I try to pick a different song each episode. So for stimulating my mind, I would say Outkast and Good 'Em Up, Get Up, Get Out, and Get Something. Because first of all, I had a chance to work with those brothers, but I always go back to that song kind of when I'm feeling down and I just need some motivation and inspiration. And then soothes my body and just keeps me going. I'm going way back. Brother D-Train song, Keep On. And that's my theme song. And it pushes me to keep going. Even, being a podcast host, head of a nonprofit, it's hard out here in these streets, but I got to keep, stay positive. I got to keep using God's grace. And that's what this show is about. Just staying positive, putting more love out into the world, like you said, Chris. And I just cannot thank both of you all from the bottom of my heart for being on this show. Chris, you know how I look up to you, brother. I mean, you really are, bro. I don't know if you're a true legend. You're a real G. And you welcome me into your family and your circle. And I love your wife. I love your brother, your sister, and everybody that I've had the good fortune to meet are just good people, good stock. And we are so incredibly proud of your journey, by God's grace, that you are still here with us. And I just want you to know you're just getting started. God is just getting started. And I'm so excited to watch the next 12, 24 years, like everything, 50 years of what you're going to do. All the greatness that he put in your life was just to set you up for this next phase. And so keep inspiring us, brother. We thank you at the Mibo Show. Thank you again to Johnson & Johnson, our partners. Thank you, Dr. Sheldon, for what you do, National Alliance on Mental Illness. So grateful for you both for being on the show. And again, make sure y'all tell people about the Mibo Show. Thanks again to Johnson & Johnson, our partner. Check out my nonprofit, Silence the Shame. They're out there in the streets doing great work for the community. And yeah, man, just love on each other.
Love you, Shanti.
Peace out.
I don't recall ever graduating at all. Sometimes I think I'm just a disappointment to y'all.
Hey.
That's all. I'm mad at you.
Oh, wait, I do need you to say one thing before we go, because you from Detroit. Just give me a good what up, though.
What up, though? I know they watching the Mibo Show. What up, though?
Hey, all right. Thank you.